Welcome to PixelTunes Radio, a podcast where we have fun talking about video games and video game music. I am Mike.
And I'm Ed.
And this is Shreddin with Brendan. And we're going to get to who Brendan is and why he's shredding in just a bit.
Maybe he's shredding lettuce. I can go for a Subway right now.
You know, I don't think he's shredding lettuce.
Damn.
So, what you been up to?
I'm redoing my bathroom.
Yeah?
Yeah. Pain in the neck.
Fun.
Yeah.
When's that done?
Who knows?
Yeah?
Man.
20XX?
We had to actually stay overnight in a hotel because we didn't have a toilet.
Wow.
And we got the floor done, so, chilled out. Let the kids go in the pool.
Nice.
But it's been crazy, We're recording this Memorial Day weekend, so 3-day weeker for me. It's nice.
Yeah, I'm working on Monday, unfortunately.
Bummer.
But I don't have to wake up super early, so that's nice.
It's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh well. I had a barbecue yesterday. And then I just got back from Congo, which if you are from the area of Connecticut, Congo is a meet-up swap meet sort of thing at the local video game store, Retro Games Plus, where you go and you meet up with a bunch of people, and it's a huge event and tons of people go. Actually, a couple of people asked about you. A couple of our listeners.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
Cool.
They were like, "Where's Ed?" I was like, he's
hanging out at home.
Hanging out at home.
Yeah. It's been a busy weekend and busy week with the bathroom going on, so I just wanted to chill out.
Yeah, I hear you. I picked up a bunch of Castlevania soundtracks, which I'm super excited because I got them all for really dirt cheap. I only spent $20 and I traded one game and ended up with all these amazing Castlevania soundtracks. Got some cool arrangements, the Dracula Best Perfect Selection 1 and 2, which are really cool. Castlevania 64. Not even going to go into it because we'll be here all day.
Yeah, but we should post some screenshots up on the Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm sure people would be interested. There's a lot of stuff here that I've never seen before. So there's a lot of really, really cool music, and it seems like arrangements and then MIDI versions of the Sharp X68000 tracks. So a lot of it will be really cool to listen to.
Yeah, no, I think people should definitely check them out. I can't believe the price I got them for. So specifically the Perfect Selection soundtracks were going for quite a bit a couple years ago. Maybe they've dropped in price, I don't know, but they were going for like $200. Like, it's pretty crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good thing to have in your collection.
Good score. Yeah, I mean, you know me in Castlevania. Gotta have as much.
You're like in Castlevania.
Yeah.
Like you love it so hard you're physically inside of Castlevania.
I'm inside of the castle of Vania.
You and Drac are like tight bros.
No, I would kill him.
Alucard? Who's your favorite Castlevania character?
Simon Belmont.
Really?
Come on now. Yeah, he was the OG.
More of an Alucard guy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You would be.
Flowy hair.
Yeah.
Gets me every time.
Yeah, the flowy hair gets you. Oh boy, alright. So let's talk about our guest, who is apparently shredding lettuce.
Yes, I am finally pleased to welcome my brother Brendan on the show. We've been trying to get him on for the past 3-4 episodes or so.
At least,
it was every single episode we would make an outro saying, my brother's going to be on the show next episode.
And we had to edit it out. Yeah.
It kept having to work. So, Brendan, thank you for finally joining us.
Sorry, but retail is retail. If anybody works that, you know how schedules are not set in stone by any means. So
Yeah.
I am off on a Sunday, and I'm here, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's going to be cool to talk about a lot of our experiences growing up with video games. And, I've mentioned you a whole bunch of times in the past saying how we have, a lot of similar tastes, but then also we kind of branched out in two different directions as far as video games went as time kind of went on. So we've got a lot of games that, you kind of played and I didn't play too much, and then a lot of games that we both really enjoyed together. So it's going to be a really cool episode.
Looking forward to it.
Speaking of which, our first track is from UmJammer Lammy. Really cool game based on the Parappa series. And Brad, why don't you tell everybody about the game a little bit?
Parappa was a game that was kind of the first time I played a music-based game, and I always thought it was a great idea, and it was executed very well. But as you'll see through the picks on these other games, I like shredded guitars, a little heavier music. So UmJammer was guitar-based. You weren't rapping, you were playing along with some notes and trying to improvise. And so that's kind of what drew me. That's why I like this game more than Parappa. Parappa's a great game in its own right, but this is the one I play more if I had to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. UmJammer Lammy, she was a member of a band called Milk Can, if I remember correctly.
Milk Can. Yeah, I remember that now.
So she was, learning how to play guitar, and it was kind of the same deal as Parappa, where she has to get to a show at the end of the game, basically, and she's running into all sorts of ridiculous situations. So in this particular track called Fright, she ends up on a plane, and she's trying to get to her destination, and the pilot is like, multiple personalities.
Yeah, but he gets hit on the
He
head.
keeps getting hit on the head repeatedly.
Right, and that changes his personality each time.
So he goes from like a dorky guy who's obsessed with food to like this militant, like almost
Angry
death
guy.
metal screaming.
Yeah.
So the song changes its tempo too, and you get really really chuggy guitars, and then kind of like strummy guitar solos, and so it kind of goes back and forth, and you kind of play
Call and response.
call and response. Thank you for his vocals versus your guitars, and it's just a lot of fun.
I always had trouble with this level. I couldn't beat this level in this game. I
It's
love this
tough.
game, but I don't know what it... I have better luck with Parappa. I think there's a little bit more negotiation with Parappa, where you can kind of suck at Parappa and do better. Whereas I thought that they got a lot more strict with UmJammer Lammy, where you needed to be really good at the game in order to progress. So when you got to this stage of the game, I just couldn't beat it. I don't know.
I remember failing a few times, but I think we both then beat this eventually. I mean, we
Yeah.
own the game, so we played it a lot.
The game is very arbitrary. There's no set system of how you're supposed to improvise, or if you
Right.
get a good or a bad or whatever they call it. You can think you played a great little riff that kind of works with the song, even though it's not part of the instructed buttons, but you may get a bad score on it, and
Right.
there's no feedback as to why. So
Yeah,
it's,
you get
it's
a
a
little
tricky.
call.
Yeah.
And especially if you're playing, or at least in my experience, if you try to play this game on like a PS2 using the the PlayStation 1
Right.
emulation, the timing isn't exact like it was on the
I agree.
original
Yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah,
so there's
no.
a little discrepancy there.
Yeah.
So it makes the game a lot more difficult. Emulation, if you try to emulate this game on the PC, forget it. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to play.
Yeah, yeah.
Your best bet's to get yourself a original PlayStation and just play
Huh.
it through that.
I thought I got really bad at the game, and I think it's just the lag was horrible on my
Yeah.
PS3 and a Vita. I have it on the Vita also, and it's just not.
That must
Playable.
be why I couldn't pass this level, because I must have been off.
Yeah,
as
it's very
far as the
possible.
lag.
Yeah, throw it on a regular PlayStation. I think you'll have a
I'll
better
have to
time.
try it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that requires me to go get an actual regular PlayStation.
Take a look at the Goodwills,
Yeah.
Salvation Armies. Sometimes you see them sitting there for like $5. People don't know what they are.
I would
Just
get
throw 'em on the shelf.
the PS1, not the PlayStation 1.
The mini.
The mini.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Well, those tend to work better too.
yeah,
over
they
time.
were better designed, much
Yeah.
better designed. You don't have to flip it
Absolutely.
upside down. So
So we've played a Parappa track in the past. All the music and the game was produced by Masaya Matsuura.
Right.
He's got other games like Vib Ribbon and Major Minor's Majestic March, Mojib Ribbon, which was the follow-up to Vib Ribbon, and he did a couple of Tamagotchi games for the DS throughout like the late 2000s. His last game was Haunt for the Xbox 360, which I actually played. I think they were giving that away for free for a while, and it
Really?
was actually really good. So, we've talked about it before with the Parappa game, so I feel like we should get right into the music. So this is Fright from UmJammer Lammy for the PlayStation.
Look at the sky, give me the gun, never give it up, soldier. Get into the morning, put it on a track, show what you got, soldier. Did I eat my drink? don't wanna die. That was gooder than good. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm in a hurry. Need to move on.
Welcome back. That was from F-Zero X. I know we just played a track from that last episode, but these are Brendan's picks. And actually, to be fair, these picks were picked several weeks ago prior to us doing the N64 episode, so technically this was first.
Correct.
Don't hate.
Don't hate, appreciate. This track was called Decide in the Eyes.
Yeah, man, the titles of these tracks are just bizarre. Devil's Call in Your Heart, Decide in the Eyes.
This is a much different track from that last episode.
Yes.
I will say that. That last episode's track, what was it called? Devil's
Call in Your Heart.
Devil's Call in Your Heart.
Yeah.
Was totally just Slayer. Just flat out Slayer. And this, I would say, is more, I don't know, maybe Deep Purple. It's a lot more, I mean, you've got the organs, the really like sharp
Pre-Dog
organs.
Night, that kind of like...
Yeah.
It's the Japanese love melodic guitars.
Absolutely.
That's why they still love bands like Mr. Big and stuff that never kind of got a following over here. But they love that kind of a heavy overall sound, but a lot of melody, a lot of solos, things like that.
So a lot of that music ended up influencing Japanese game soundtracks. So, and especially in the case of this track, where they took the theme from Big Blue from the original F-Zero and metaled it up, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Good way to use it.
So, Brendan, did you play a lot of F-Zero X back in the day? I seem to remember playing a lot of this.
I loved F-Zero X for the main reason that it had the randomly generated tracks. I love that idea, and that was one of the only racing game I played back then that had that. So you can just fire it up and play a new track every time.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an excellent idea and something that I wish they did more of these days. And I just like the fact that they took a great song and arranged it. Back then in Super Nintendo, you couldn't do real guitars or real instruments. So like a lot of games, I think the intention was to make a rock song, but they didn't have the technology, and so when they can do a new version of it, they put the instruments in that they originally had in their heads when they composed the track in the first place.
It's like the $6 Million Man. Well, they were like,
oh, we can make it better.
We can make it better, faster, stronger.
Yeah,
Come on.
Now I get it.
But I don't want to spend a lot of money.
I was lagging behind there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we were talking about last episode too with the N64, the more complex and the more live and longer, like high quality samples you have, the more processing power it takes out of your system. So the nice thing about F-Zero X is that they kept it simple to keep that frame rate up. So I think a lot of that extra processing power can be put into the music, and the music really, really shined.
Yeah.
So they released, I think, 2 versions of the F-Zero X soundtrack after the game came out. So there was the version that's like direct audio directly from the game, which is the version that we played. But then there's also an arranged version of the F-Zero X soundtrack where instead of using like MIDI guitar samples and stuff like that, they actually play it with a live band. And they both sound really good.
It's funny, Nintendo wasn't big on soundtracks until I think like Super Metroid. As far as like from what I recall, the Super Metroid Sound in Action soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yep. And then after that, they kind of went pretty big with soundtracks for a while. They were offering as part of like Nintendo Power, like you can, they would give you like this little catalog and you can buy soundtracks. There was like this huge surge of Nintendo sponsoring soundtracks, and then that kind of went away for quite a bit of time through the GameCube era, the Wii era, and then all of a sudden, recently they've started introducing soundtracks because it's a great way for a company to make money and still, put out a product that fans are going to love. And I mean, Konami and Capcom have been doing that for ages now with soundtracks.
And plus, you've got the music to listen to on the go, so you don't necessarily need to be sitting in front of your TV to be jamming out in the car. And I mean, listening to F-Zero when you're on the highway, I mean, perfect. It's like designed for that.
You also got to keep in mind that video game soundtracks, of course, were way more popular in Japan. I mean, they actually were, knocking down on the sales charts.
I remember when I was a kid,
it's niche here.
Looking through an episode of like EGM or GamePro or something, and there was just a small little article in the bottom corner about how the soundtrack for the original Streets of Rage had just come out in Japan. It was, obviously called Bare Knuckle.
Right.
And I was like, oh my, why is this stuff? I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Why is it not coming out over here? And it took us like probably 15 years to catch up with that. But I mean, finally now soundtracks are, kind of part and parcel in the U.S. But, plus with the internet and the global economy, you can also import them.
There'd be like an advertisement in the back of like EGM that's like, want to buy game soundtracks? And I'm like, yes, please. And they're like,
give me all your money.
Yeah, I'm like, here, I'm throwing it at my magazine.
My first memory of soundtracks was actually taping soundtracks from SNES games, I think, onto our old stereo.
Yep.
That's
with
funny.
With an audio tape, and just going to the sound test menu if the game had it, hitting record and listen to like the Darius soundtrack or something like that.
Hours
and making his own little, and then he could put in his car and race around and be all happy. So I just remember that was like, oh, that was a good idea. You make your own soundtrack because you couldn't get them back in the day.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the days before digital recording, so they were all analog tape, But it was good. It was fun. I used to pop them in my Walkman.
I used to make
sit in the back of my parents' station wagon.
Scowl.
I used to make mixtapes, but it was all like stuff that I had on like CD, and I had this awesome boombox that my mom had where you could record. You could put in a cassette, like a blank cassette, and you could pick a track to play, and it would record onto the tape. It was really cool. It was like, I never saw anything like that before back then. It was like, oh my god, I could put a CD in, and if I have a cassette and choose a track, it'll play just that track and it'll record it. I was like mind blown. And I really wanted to do that with game music, but I couldn't do it because, I only had like 3 soundtracks, so I did it with a few.
Yeah.
I had, I think, just Final Fantasy VII.
It's a lot of work and effort to do that kind of stuff with video games because a lot of those games have a lot of music.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of real-time
Finagling.
editing and stuff. Like I said, I've talked about recording soundtracks before, and I had that little bar where I could fade the music out myself, so I didn't have to worry about songs ending cold and then starting a new one. So they sounded pretty professional as I was done with them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get on to our next game. This is an indie title that I've been wanting to play forever. It was originally, well, not originally, but it was free on PSN Plus for a while, wasn't it? One of the games.
That's the reason I have it. I didn't pay for it. I downloaded it when it was free, and then it sat on my PS4 for a while. I didn't play it. Was playing other things, and then I went to it a few months ago, and once I started it, I did not stop playing it until it was beaten. At least the first wave of there's a new game plus and a new game plus.
Yeah. So the name of the game is Rogue Legacy. And it's kind of, it has like Castlevania influences. It is actually Igarashi approved. He actually did a podcast, or a video podcast, where he actually played the game with a bunch of interviewers. So
That's cool.
He really liked it.
It's a roguelike game, which really means there's randomly generated levels, but your progress carries over. So you start a new game, you play until you die, and then the gold you earn goes to your next of kin. So you have, and your next of kin could be different attributes. So you can have an offspring that has color blindness, and then you die, and then your next offspring is super tiny and very fast but weak. Then you have a really giant guy with tons of hit points, but he gets knocked back 10 feet when he gets hit. And so you have to kind of change your playstyle depending on who you have at the moment, and you just work your way through the castle. It's different every time. You lose all your gold going into the castle, so you really have to spend it all before you go in every playthrough.
I think a 10-foot knockback would definitely cause me to rage quit.
It's not frustrating. It's a challenging game.
Yeah.
It's a challenging game at first, and then you might start playing it and think I'm gonna waste my time playing this. I'm never gonna beat it. But the progress is steady, and as you get better at it, and as you learn different types of enemies, and as you learn which types of guys or what types of heroes you get are better for certain parts of the castle, you work your way through it, and the bosses are beaten and they stay beaten. So the main goal is to get to a boss and beat the boss, and then keep working your way through to the next boss. I don't know, it hooked me. I haven't been hooked on a game like that
really
for a while.
Yeah, you've talked it up enough that I definitely want to get it, so I'm going to look into...
You had me at
soon.
Castlevania, and you lost me at roguelike.
That's not as bad as it sounds.
I have played... It's a DS game where you play as a female ninja, Kunoichi.
Kizuna, Legend of the Unemployed Ninja?
Yes. And it was like a funny, quirky, anime-inspired roguelike. And I bought it because, I like the art, and I thought it was cool, and I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. I was totally one of those, like... hey, this is $20 at a game store. Impulse buy, definitely. And so picked it up and started playing it and hated it just because it was a roguelike. And I didn't know that going
Well, you
in,
gave it a shot, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know what it is? I know what it is.
What is it?
It's the randomized thing that bothers me.
Oh yeah, you're a game memorization fan.
I am.
Noticed that about you.
I am totally like, give me a game, I will memorize the crap out of it. Like I blew through all the Mega Mans, memorized the crap.
I remember
out of
watching you play Ninja Gaiden, and you were like this basically, like, barely paying attention and like getting through stuff. So
you can play this game like that. There's an option a few hours into it where you can freeze the castle the way it was the last time you played it for a fee.
Okay.
You don't get as much gold every time you play, so you do get penalized. But if you like the castle the way it is, or you want to just play it at a random spot and have it set there, you can do that. I never did.
Right.
I liked being surprised every time I went into a room, not knowing where the enemies were, what size the room was, where the traps were.
I think
that was part of the appeal.
I can appreciate that because the experience is always going to be different, and that's cool. But I think I come from such an old school mentality that it has to be a game that I can play once, love it all the way through.
You want to be able to duplicate that experience.
Yeah, it's like reading a book. You want to read the book and be like, I remember this part. Okay, so and then you pick up right from where you left off.
Understandable.
But like, if it's the situation where you're like watching a movie and you love the movie, and then you go back and you watch the movie again, and you're like, wait a minute, that guy's a girl now. Like,
well, it's like watching the special editions of Star Wars. Like,
right?
Where did that little computer generated
exactly
bug come from?
So you're saying the Star Wars movies are roguelikes?
George likes.
Lucas likes. So let's talk about the soundtrack a little bit. The soundtrack was composed by A Shell in the Pit and Tettix,
That's-
both of which sound like video games in and of themselves.
Yeah,
A Shell in the Pit is actually,
it's actually
a composer named Gordon McGladdery.
Okay.
And he does game audio and composition. Mainly
good.
he does sound effects.
Also, his
Turn on my
name.
speaker.
Also, his name is Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah, the
So-
fish stick guy.
Yeah, that's Gorton.
That's Kanye.
Is it? It's Kanye.
So, A Shell in the Pit has done game audio for, aside from a little Rogue Legacy, has done Shellraiser, We Are Zombies, Nyx, and he's done a lot of game jam soundtracks, and those are where a bunch of developers would get together at like a conference and design a game in like 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever. So the game would go from beginning to end in the span of that conference. So he did a bunch of game jam compositions, which means he just basically composed on the fly for stuff like Moonchild, Bleed for Speed, Dr. Dozer, City Pulse, stuff that you can just find on indie sites for free. But so he's the one that composed this particular track called Narwhal. It's actually really good. I mean, it's got like strummy guitars and very mellow melody, but the snares are just pounding.
Yeah, it's tough to make music in a game like this because there's only about 4 or 5 songs, and you keep replaying the same areas and the same music in the background. So it has to be decent enough where you don't get so annoyed with hearing it over and over that you want to just turn it down altogether. I never got to that point. I played the game a lot. My first playthrough with all the bosses was about 15 hours.
Oh, wow.
Never thought, hey, I can't stand hearing this song again. So it's a
Right.
testament to how decent the music is, and it didn't bother me.
So the other composer goes by the name of Tettix. He's done music for My First Quantum Transmission.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh.
I remember my
I
first.
remember your second, but I remember first.
I remember my first quantum
Had to change my sheets.
transition.
Yeah, and he also did music for Cool Pizza
Oh.
and Bullet Odyssey.
Cool.
Like
cool,
audio
cool
and
pizza,
Odyssey.
like cold
Our-
pizza.
Cool Pizza. Cool Pizza, like a cool, like maybe with a pizza with sunglasses.
I used to eat cold pizza.
A girl
all the
and her
time in
haunted
college.
skateboard dive through the depths of the underworld, fighting devils and looking for answers. Can pizza ever be cool? That is
always
that is the iTunes tagline for that game,
All right then.
and it's very skate
Whoa.
art graffiti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Vector.
Reviews say it's one of the strangest games people have ever played.
That sounds pretty strange.
Anyways, I say we get into the music. This
Yeah.
is Narwhal from Rogue Legacy from A Shell in the Pit.
Hey there, do you like the wacky anime fighting game action present in Guilty Gear?
Yeah.
With all the crazy characters like Dizzy, Ino, and Faust.
Oh, yeah, I love those characters. They're so wacky. Why are you asking me?
Because Arc System Works just signed a deal with Konami, combining the anime-inspired wackiness of Guilty Gear with the disgusting, revolting, alien run-and-gun Contra to bring you Contra Gear X.
Well, that doesn't sound appealing.
You're wrong. In Contra Gear X, you'll have the same great fighting engine you loved from the Guilty Gear series, combined with the brutal, tough-as-nails difficulty from Contra.
Ugh, one-hit kills? Only 3 rounds? This is ridiculous.
Exactly. Check out Kai Reiser, a badass mercenary who loves Jesus.
Wait, what?
Or Lucia Rage, a woman created out of alien DNA who became a soldier. She attacks with her hair.
Oh, I see what they did there.
What about Ino Boss, the villain of the game?
It's a giant face hugger with boobs and tight red spandex? Playing a guitar made of fetuses? This is just wrong.
Shut up. Coming to your PlayStation 5 and Sega Pluto in 20XX.
Welcome back. That was Still in the Dark from Guilty Gear X2, composed by Daisuke Ishiwatari. And this is a game I've mentioned before, Brendan and I both, well, not this particular game itself, but this series Brendan and I kind of grew up playing a lot of.
Yeah, I really like the soundtrack more than the game. We played Street Fighter 2 endlessly growing up, and 2D fighters are still pretty popular with us, at least for me.
Yeah,
I don't know how much
definitely.
you play. I just love the music. I love the metal references. I love the fact that it was, again, guitar based. Especially this version of the soundtrack was heavy, really good melodic guitar. And I like the fact that a lot of the guys were named after metal singers or metal all different bands. Yeah, Testament, Kai Kiss, which is 2 different Halloween singers in one guy. So I love the whole aesthetic of the game. The character design was great. Did you just get that?
I just got that. It's Michael Kiske and
Kai Hansen.
Kai Hansen, yeah. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
And there's also an Axl Rose style guy.
His name is Axel.
His name's
Yeah.
Axl.
Oh, yeah,
He's got the
Yes.
bandana.
It's not
Right.
subtle at all. But
Yeah,
it's
no.
It's like a Final Fight. It has a lot of that kind of same reference.
And Mega Man X5.
Yeah.
All the bosses are named in America after Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I love that. Not really knowing in Final Fight when it first came out, all those references and kind of getting them over the years. And I like when they sneak in little things like that. I mean, even Rockman was Rockman. It was rock. It was
I'm
music.
curious to know, because I'm a pretty big Final Fight fan, what references you...
There's again Axel. There's
Yeah.
the
2P, Tupac.
and
Yeah, definitely. Oh, wait, my bad.
You're doing this wrong.
Abigail looks like King Diamond, and Abigail's a King Diamond.
yeah, okay.
So that's one. Who's the other guy? There's Axel, and there's another guy that you fight in that same level with Abigail, who blocks a lot. I forgot the other guy's name. He's named after Slash. Is there Slash?
Oh, Slash.
Yeah,
Oh, Slash.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And Poison.
And
Poison,
well,
yeah, that's-
See, I always thought Slash looked like a beefed up Elvis.
I don't know if he looks like it, but the names are definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you took the glasses and the top hat off, he'd look kind of like Slash
and
does.
some
Yeah.
steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But,
definitely a lot of
yeah.
hard rock and metal references throughout
It's,
early
yeah,
Famicom games.
it's subtle. Back then, I think they were probably worried about copyright, but you know they put them in there, and I saw you get to know the more you play and the more you listen to more different types of music, you see that those references kind of come out, and I like Guilty Gear was a huge. It was not as subtle as Final Fight. It was
but
very
right.
obvious, right? It's very
It's
obvious.
just crazy that Metro City airlifted and stole the Statue of Liberty to put in the
I
background.
know, seriously.
Of the, not Hudson.
It was the toilet gang.
It was the
the guys
toilet
who
gang.
did it.
Those damn
Yeah, they have to clean their bathrooms,
Right? Honestly.
dirty.
But I actually, to the listeners, I am really curious. Are there other games out there where there's like hidden band references that we didn't know about? I wanna see some posts on the Facebook
I
group page.
wanna know.
Yeah, so visit us, www.facebook.com/groups/PixelTunes Radio. Just comment on either this podcast or make a post yourself. Let me know. I'm curious to see if there's any other
Do it now.
crazy metal or even like pop bands. Aside from like, stupid stuff like Rock Band Beatles. Yeah, obviously. the Beatles.
I saw some Beatles songs in that game.
Guilty Gear X2 I had a lot of fun with. like a lot.
This
with
is where
my
I think the
roommate.
Guilty Gear series really kind of got into its, where it kind of like, where like Blaze Blue, which Ishiwatari also works on, where it
Right.
kind of started getting that smooth and that mature, I guess, as a
Right.
fighting game.
Yeah. No, this was probably, in my opinion, the best Guilty Gear. I played the one that came out after this, and I was like, meh.
Guilty Gear XX? Or X3?
Accent Core or something
Accent
like
Core,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like the flow of Guilty Gear X2, but this track is just such a great intro track. This plays during the movie, the intro movie, doesn't it? If I recall.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
a background stage track.
Right.
But-
And it's just such a great track to just throw on in the background. One thing I really love about fighting games, and really just games in general, is you'll boot up a game and you'll have, like, if the intro music is amazing, you won't skip it. Like, like, I would never skip this. I would just let it play.
Yeah, or like the intro, like Contra Shattered Soldiers or
Right,
something.
exactly.
All right, so speaking of games where guitar shredding is a major part of the action, we're going to go to a game where guitar shredding is the action
Literally
itself.
the action.
So this is from one of Brendan's favorite series of all time, Guitar Freaks, which was the predecessor to Guitar Hero, put out by Konami, really only in Japan. Brendan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your love throughout the decades for guitar-based games?
It was a game that existed before I knew. I didn't know about it, but I really kind of, once I saw it, I was like, I have to play this game. I have to find it. I don't remember how I found out it was out there. Probably online, early days of the internet. And I remember begging Ed to import it for me. And you actually went online and found a place online that had the guitar in a game. And we had our PS1 modded to play imports back then, so I think we were able to play it. And so, yeah, I think we had it. I think I paid an extra $15, $20 to overnight it. And I remember it showed up like at 10 in the morning on my doorstep, and I just like, I ripped it open.
And the rest of his life was changed forever.
Yeah, it was, it was Guitar Hero before Guitar Hero. It had the same guitar style, it had the tilting little, in this game you had to do it at the right time. It wasn't a star power you activated, you had to actually hit it when the icon came up. And it gave you multipliers. It had the same strummer, the same buttons on the neck. So really Guitar Hero just ripped it off, but it was all Japanese. It was mostly original songs. It was mostly what you are gonna hear. It's more like a just instrumental shred guitar solos. There's not a lot of actual songs. They throw some covers in the Japanese version of Alanis Morissette and Bon Jovi. Some interesting covers, but they're all a minute and a half. They weren't full songs. They're very short. It was meant for an arcade. It was meant for just playing, getting your highest score, moving on. And then one of my fondest memories is Milford Amusement Smiles, whatever it was called back then, had the game in the arcade.
Smiles.
And I picked it up and I started playing it there, and it was the same song, so I was able to just jump in and play them very, very well. And I had the top 7 or 8 spots on the leaderboards for almost every song because I had played him for probably almost a year by the time it came out there.
I think I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. He would just stand there playing, and kids would come up and like look at him and be like, "All right, I'll play against you," and he would just literally destroy them, and the kid would just look at Brendan and go like, "Ugh," and just walk away.
That's funny.
It translated well because when Guitar Hero came out, I jumped on it, got it the first day, and I was able to jump in and play it on a pretty advanced level without teaching myself how to use the accessory or play because
there was no learning curve.
No, it was almost the same exact thing, just one more button. So it really kind of prepped me for the big music explosion that happened a few years after Guitar Freaks came out.
Yeah, and I think Guitar Freaks was a little more precise. If I remember playing both games, you didn't need to be as accurate with Guitar Hero. So when you started playing Guitar Hero, you're like, wow, this is really easy. I'm hitting every single note,
Right.
Even if, where you might not hit a note in Guitar Freaks. So it just gave you that extra level of accuracy that you needed to play the harder levels on.
Yeah,
on
Guitar
Hero.
Freaks was strumming. It wasn't so much hitting the right fret buttons, it was being very precise on your strokes. You had to use up and down strokes. It was too fast to do all down,
Right.
which a lot of people still do, and I still do a lot on Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So you had to figure out how to hit 4 or 5 notes in the span of 10 seconds and hit them accurately. And it would grade you on if you hit one exact good, and you get different points for even how closely you hit the note, which is why it was score based, which is big for Japanese games.
Too many numbers for Americans.
Right.
They had to dumb it down for Guitar Hero.
They want people to be able to play it and not kill themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So the music was this particular track. I mean, the Guitar Hero or Guitar Freaks has been they went up to like what 8 different Guitar Freaks games or something like that. So music was submitted and published by many artists over the years. One of the most prolific was Mutsuhiko Izumi, who composed this particular track and most of the tracks for the original Guitar Freaks game. And he's got, I can't even count the number of tracks that he's got a hand in. I want to say like probably 300 to 400 tracks. It's absolutely insane. And he's done music for Drum Mania, Beat Mania, Gitadora, Jew Beat. I don't even know what Jew Beat is.
You don't want to know.
That's where we beat Mike up.
Yeah.
But he's also done, music for Dance Dance Revolution and just all of like the Konami music stuff. He's either had a hand in the composition, arrangement, or played guitar, bass, or drums on, because he's both a guitarist and a drummer. So, I mean, this particular track, why did you pick this one out of the thousands of tracks available for Guitar Freaks?
It was the most fun to play. From what I remember, I haven't played Guitar Freaks sadly in a long time because I don't have the ability to play it anymore. But I really loved the melody. I really love this version because the songs are so short. Just when you get into them, they're done on the original game, but there's extended versions you can unlock. And so this is one of the longer versions, and you really can take your time and enjoy the song and not be done in 90 seconds.
It's funny because I had never played this. I had heard of it, but I'd never played it. And I was more of a DDR guy, so me and my roommate at the time in college would go to the same arcade that you had just mentioned, to go and we would do DDR. And so I never saw Guitar Freaks. I might have like seen it once there, but I never played it.
Right.
And so getting back to what you were talking about the music where they started, putting in like pop singers or popular music, I think that was kind of the downfall of DDR as well, is and I don't know if they did that with Guitar Freaks, but they started, as the games became more and more popular, they started basically making it not about like songs that were created by Japanese artists or by original songs or even like techno songs that were J-pop from Japan, but it became more about American pop songs.
Yeah, I think that resonated more with the average American audience too.
Yeah, who wants to jump into a game they've never seen and play a song they've never heard of?
Right.
It's more like, oh, I know this song.
Especially, in an arcade where you're going to be probably playing it for the first time, it helps a little bit better if you know what's coming up in the song because you've heard it before. So
Yeah.
Bopping around to like Shake It Off by Taylor Swift or something. I'm sure that's in a music game.
I think it's going to be in a Guitar Hero.
I wouldn't doubt it. So I'm looking forward to hearing this track. This one really took me back the first time I heard it after Brendan picked it. So this is Fire, the extended version from Guitar Freaks by Mutsuhiko Izumi.
Welcome back. That was from Darius Twin for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and that was a little track called Rylair.
Rylair.
I don't know why that track is called Rylair, but you know what?
I think it's a planet.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yes, because all of the planets in the Darius series were very weirdly named, kind of like Space Harrier, that kind of deal.
This was
Just kind of threw random consonants together.
This was a post-launch title, if I recall. This came out.
Oh, Darius Twin, yeah, no, it
shortly
wasn't a launch
after
title at all. It was relatively
early,
but it was not.
It was like within the first year, right. But it was within the first year that the system came out. Because I remember reading in Nintendo Power and being like, "Oh, this looks really cool."
Yeah.
And like I never played it.
Yeah. No, Brendan and I rented this one, right?
That's the first memory. Is I don't know. It looked cool. Maybe who knows why we rented it? We like
Shoot 'em
shooters,
up, man.
Yeah.
I love shooters.
And it was 2 players, so we played it. I don't know if we beat it the first time we played it, but we liked it enough to eventually end up buying it or getting it for a present, probably back in Christmas days or someone's birthday. And that, speaking earlier about the soundtrack recording, I think this is one of the first ones I remember you recording. The soundtrack.
I definitely had this on tape. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think we liked the soundtrack so much and then there was a sound test built in, which made it easier.
Yep.
And I remember you just sitting there and going through the tracks and recording them all very meticulously.
The sound driver that they used for this with the overdriven guitar is very, very Mega Man X.
Yes, and this was way before Mega Man X.
Right, of course.
So I'm sure they probably borrowed a couple of sound fonts from Taito.
Absolutely.
This was composed by Norihiko Furukawa and Poochie.
Poochie. Not Poochie. Not Poochie from Yoshi's Island.
Or in The Simpsons, Poochie.
Right. No,
You have to
this
go
is
home. His planet needed it.
Poochie with an O.
Pochi.
Both of which were members of Zuntata. I'm pretty sure that if you are a composer for Taito, you are a member of Zuntata at some point.
Kind of like the Konami Kukeo Club.
Kukeha Club?
Kukeha Club, yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah, the Konami Kukehai Club. Because the regular Kukehai Club was their band.
Right.
Konami Kukehai Club means you were just a composer for their
Right.
company's games.
One of us.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, Norihiko Furukawa started off back in 1989 with Sagaya, which was in the Darius series.
Okay.
Anyway, so he was no
There's a lot of
stranger.
Darius games, right?
There were between arcade and even the Japanese systems.
Even like the
there's
Saturn.
There's a
even
Saturn
had-
version of it.
Yeah.
The Saturn version is really good because it uses polygons as well as 2D sprites, so the bosses are really big in 3D.
Kind of like Thunder
game's
Force
great.
5.
Darius
a little bit.
Gaiden, I think it was called on
Yeah.
Saturn.
Yeah.
I have that game. It's great.
Yeah.
But Darius Twin was a unique game in the Darius series in that most of the other games had arcade counterparts, but Twin was strictly a Super Nintendo game with an all-original soundtrack. So anyways, after Furukawa did Darius Twin in 91, he did the Flintstones, Treasure of Sierra, Mad Rock. They did some of the Bust a Move games. Most recently did the sound for 3D Dot Game Heroes in 2009.
Okay.
That was the last we heard of him. He was thanked for Border Down, that Dreamcast shmup.
Right.
That came out in 03, but that's the last credit he has. Pochi, whose real name isn't known. I have no idea who this Pochi
His
dude
real
is.
name is Poochie.
He worked for Zuntata between 1989 and 1995 and did mostly coin-op games, although a couple of Super Famicom console games as well. Worked on games like Gun Knack, Power Instinct 2, the original Famicom Star Wars for Namco. So he bounced back and forth between Hudson Soft, Taito, Atlas, a lot of different of the more prolific Japanese development houses for arcade and Super Famicom back in the day. So neither one of them were really like solid members of Zuntata, not like Ogura was or anything like that.
Right.
So, but they put out a fantastic soundtrack. Bren, why'd you pick this particular track?
I think it's the most memorable going back and choosing songs for this list that you asked me to contribute to. I think I knew I wanted to do a song from this game because I liked the game and I remember it had a great soundtrack. And once I heard this song, this was it. This was the one it stood out to me. I immediately remembered pretty much the entire song, the melody. And I just think we were talking about earlier with arranged versions. I think it would sound great. I don't know if there is an arranged version, but I would love to hear a full band version of this song.
Yeah, it would be really cool if there was a remix or something.
Yeah, just because it sounds like it's really kind of driven by it could be a strong guitar line or something, and I'd love to hear someone play it in real life.
Yeah, and it had kind of a prog rock feel to it. The tempo kind of changes up, and kind of the beat kind of changes itself 3 or 4 times throughout the song.
Yeah, there's a moment more towards the later part where there's some galloping drums and you know, galloping bass drums, and guitar picks up a bit. Type thing. So,
yeah. This certainly has like a lot of wailing guitars. Some of probably the highest guitar sound samples I've ever heard on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff really pierces your ears if you're listening to it through headphones.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's good, and the rest of the soundtrack is pretty similar to it. A lot of it has kind of like a Japanese anime, like a comedic anime like credits theme feel to it, with those really thick horns and kind of a marching tempo that you might get in those kind of cartoons. But it was a lot of fun, and it was one of those shooters that was one of my favorites growing up.
Cool. Word.
What's our next track, Michael?
Our next track is from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Trace, the Manhattan Project for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This was a great game. I didn't really have that much exposure to it until later on when I picked it up for like $8 somewhere.
It was kind of underrated, I think, back in the day. Yeah. And it was big when it got released, but then it quickly got overshadowed by the Super Nintendo, which was released shortly after it.
And this was as good as it was going to get as far as a Ninja Turtles game on the Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know Tournament Fighters came out after this, but it just, you know, I don't know, it wasn't the same.
Well, it wasn't a beat 'em up.
It wasn't a beat 'em up. But one thing I will say about that I don't like about this game is all the colors look washed out. Like in Turtles 2 and even in Turtles 1, all the colors look really bright, very vibrant, and they went for, with this game, like a beach theme.
They're more like pastels.
Yeah, the colors are just like the sand. It's very like, there's a lot more browns and really bright greens. And so that all the other colors kind of got washed out a bit throughout the game, except for like the water. Like there were no blues aside from like the ocean, basically.
And the sky.
So, yeah.
And Leonardo.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's, you know.
And the Foot Clan.
No, the Foot Clan was...
Yeah, because the Foot Clan were different colors, remember?
That's true.
Different colored foot would do different things, and you can kind of tell. And they kind of carried that on. I think that was as early as the original
as the second
TMNT
game.
arcade game,
yeah,
right?
the arcade game.
Yeah.
Because like the white ones would throw stars at you, and the blue ones would have katanas, and the purple ones would just punch you, so... It was kind of cool that you knew what a character was going to do before it even did it, just based on the color. It was almost like a call and response.
Well, it was it was very like, you know, I'll teach you. It's very like Simon Says, like I'll teach you what this enemy is going to do to you, and then after that, you'll know when you see that color. This is what you had. This is how to destroy.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So, what are your memories of this game, Brent?
I think we loved beat 'em ups, and for the Nintendo, I think it was one of the better. It was one of the better Nintendo beat 'em ups, really, because it had everything you needed: 2 players, lengthy mode. There was some cool like surfing water stages. It wasn't too monotonous like some of the other games. And it was the Turtles, which we both loved. I mean, we grew up at the exact right time for that franchise when it started out. So we loved the cartoon, the movies, the games. I had some of the old black and white comics still. So it was everything everything we liked in one package. Mm-hmm. And we used to play it. My most common memories are playing it at our grandparents' house when we moved Nintendo over there and all our games. We used to play that game pretty often over there.
Yeah, it was great because it was 2 players, so we wouldn't be sitting there watching each other play.
Yeah, arguing over what to play. It's like, let's beat Turtles again. Just go through it. And about an hour or so, it was done. And that's what we like to do, is just find a game we could both enjoy, not fight over or competitively. Because I remember Double Dribble used to play and beat me almost every single time, and I think I beat you once or twice ever.
You were a controller thrower.
Yeah, well.
It's funny. It's funny hearing you guys talk about like your experiences, because I've only heard his side, Ed's side of things, and I haven't heard your side, so it's really interesting. So you guys have how much of an age difference between you?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay.
Not more than that. How old are you?
36.
No, I was born in 81. You were born in 78. So 3
years.
About 3 years, okay.
Yeah.
So my brother and I are 7 years distance. So he was born in 90, I was born in 83. I was already knee deep in Nintendo and Super Nintendo by the time he was like walking. So, it was like I couldn't hand him a controller and be like, here you go.
Yeah,
let me beat the crap out of you. And so he and I didn't really bond with video games until like N64 era, when we would play like Mario Kart, Chocobo Racing, like Mario Golf, like Mario Party. Those are the type of games that he and I would play together because he was still pretty young. But he wasn't into like ninja games and all that sort of stuff. Beat 'em ups he didn't like. He just like
kind of over your
board games. It was over his head.
Yeah.
And he was never really that big into video games anyways. I mean, I think the deepest he ever got was Pokemon, and he loved Pokemon for a long time because he grew up watching the show.
Right.
So he was in that age bracket. So it was always really, to me, really frustrating because I never had somebody to play with until the N64 era, and so it's cool to hear stories about siblings who kind of grew up in that era where they could be like, hey, I'm gonna, we're gonna play, this Turtles beat 'em up.
We definitely had more fun playing the co-op games because
you weren't beating each
Brett
other
was kind
up.
of a sore loser. I remember I credited you. I think I talked about this on a past episode, but I got really, really good at Street Fighter 2 because I remember if I beat you like 2 or 3 rounds in a row, you would start to get real pissed. So I would play. And,
I'm the same way.
And lose would try to make it look like I wasn't losing, so I
that's what it
got
was,
really
okay.
good at like taking damage, but still kind of like rubber banding the energy
Right.
back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember
We had this controller, man, that just cracked apart because you would just slam it to the
we used
ground.
to take them apart and fix them.
Yeah, that's what got me into fixing electronics.
We weren't paying for our own controllers. We didn't have the money.
Yeah.
But we were lucky because we were close enough where we bought every console together. We would share and buy the games together. So every experience we had gaming was similar. We really didn't branch out and play different games until you moved out and took a lot of the older consoles with you, and I started just playing the newer ones. And so we don't have many memories or shared non-shared experiences with games from the Atari through PS2. I guess that's probably where we kind of branched off a little bit.
Well, in PlayStation and N64 era, you were kind of playing a lot of N64 games, and I was playing a lot of PlayStation games. You kind of went that GoldenEye route, and I was more playing like the non-FPS
We talked about
games.
that quite a bit last episode.
I'll play some shooters. I mean, I still have a pretty eclectic mix of games that I play, but I don't play, a lot of the RPGs. I remember you played a little more RPGs than I did. You went through Final Fantasy and Earthbound and those kind of games. So I watched you, but I don't have the patience for those or the time. So I play more, racing, some shooters, a little everything, whatever I feel like.
Running
Yeah,
gun,
sports.
beating 'em
I'm
up.
Ed's not into sports at all, so I play Madden and at the show and those kind of games.
Right.
So there's not too much to talk about with the composers, mainly because Tomoya Tomita and Kozo Nakamura, we both talked about them last episode. They actually both worked on Rakuga Kids.
Right.
So the only composer that remains that we haven't talked much about is Yuichi Sakakura, who was mainly a Konami person, worked on Ganbare Goemon Gaiden 2, Zen the Intergalactic Ninja, some Crypt Killer stuff, worked on a little bit of Beatmania, did the soundtrack for Top Gun: The Second Mission, which I actually kind of like, but I like the first one better. Also did sound design for Super Contra and
Super C or Super Contra?
Super Contra.
Okay.
That
I
was
believe
the arcade title, right?
Right, that was the arcade version because Super C was the NES game.
Yeah, and then actually started off with Gyrus, which is his first game, so that's pretty cool. That was a famous game. I think that's all I got to talk about with composers. How about some music?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is Scene 8 is what the name of the track is.
That's basically how it goes.
I never got this far in this, but hey, it's a great track. So let's go ahead and listen to Scene 8 from Turtles 3 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Manhattan Project.
The last time we saw Peter, he was getting his balls wrecked in Iggy's Wreckin' Balls.
I'm never playing that game again. I've spent the last 2 weeks in the ball trauma ward at the hospital.
So sorry to hear that, Peter. You'll be happy to know that you won't have to worry about Iggy's Wreckin' Balls ever again.
Phew!
It's time to play Marble Madness. Roll your balls down the hill as fast as you can.
Ouch!
Can your balls finish first? Dodge crazy snakes,
Yikes!
pools of mysterious liquid,
Whoa!
and 3-story drops.
My balls! Not again!
As you make your way through the mazes of Marble Madness. And now go head-to-head with new Dueling Balls mode. You may think your balls are ready, but they'll never know what's coming. Marble Madness. Roll your balls to the nearest video game shop and buy it. Today!
Welcome back. That track was from Marble Madness. Whoa!
Crazy.
My balls. Level 6 was the track, and the composers were Hal Cannon, Brad Fuller, and that was arranged by David Wise. We're not going to talk about David Wise. I think
We did a whole episode.
we did a whole
on David Wise.
episode on him, yeah.
So, a cool little trivia fact about this game is the arcade version of Marble Madness was the first game ever to use an FM chip for its music.
Really?
Everything else before that had been wavetable synth.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Interesting. Now
That
this
means nothing to me.
just left him out in the dust.
Well, you know.
Left him in the
I'm
dust.
sure it's cool.
I could explain FM synth, but then we'd have to do an entire episode. The rest of the episode would just be me talking about YM 2600
Yeah.
series stuff, so.
Right.
No.
And nobody wants to hear that. I
Except
think.
me.
I think.
And like 3 other people.
Yeah. All of which are listening right now.
Correct.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sound Geeks.
So, Marble Madness, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this track personally, but it's very. Not that I don't like the genre, but it's very rockabilly, very like punk. And it's got these guitars that just kind of just like
gallopy, it's fun.
okay. Yeah, it's gallopy, but I like my drums gallopy and my bass gallopy. I don't like my guitar gallopy. If that makes sense.
Like your Steve Harris, but not your Adrian Smith.
Yes, exactly. If Adrian Smith was and from Iron Maiden was like with his guitar, I'd be like, "What are you doing? Stop that! Play a lead solo, play a harmonizing synth. Like, come on." Anyway,
Going over my head here. So.
yeah, I know. So I know. Tit for tat.
Well, the reason why I liked the song and why I remembered it is because it's toward the end of the game, and if anybody's played that game, it's a nerve-shredding, very accurate, timed game.
Absolutely.
And I hated that song because it reminded me that I was getting toward the end and I had to be very precise, and the nature of the song is kind of hurrying you along. It's very, let's go, let's go, let's
I
go,
get
let's
that.
go.
Yeah,
I think
from
it's
the song.
intentional because it's telling you, you probably don't have time left. You're probably going to fall off the edge a million times. You're probably going to die a lot. And I just thought it was clever to put that kind of an urgent song at the end of a game that's such a difficult, kind of nerve-shredding style of game.
Yeah, it's a pretty short game, and the levels themselves are pretty short too. And the way the game works is depending on how quickly you get through the previous stages, it adds that time on to your time for the next track, or the next level. So by this time, this is like the 6th level, you are probably running out of time. You probably can just make this level by the skin of your teeth. So yeah, this definitely starts off, like the Sonic Drowning song. It almost sounds kind of similar to that because that's the same kind of thing. You need to finish this up as quickly as possible.
I watched GameSack's video on Marble Madness where they talked about Marble Madness. It wasn't a whole episode dedicated to it, but it was like their rare and valuable games or something like that. And apparently the Genesis version had 2 different versions in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Like one version came out in Japan, one came out in the US. The one in the US has terrible music. The one in Japan, they changed it up, changed some of the synths, the way the FM synth worked, and it sounded a lot better apparently.
Interesting.
That version of the game goes for quite a bit of money. The regular US version doesn't, of course. They were talking about one of the tracks that was in this game, and in the NES version it doesn't sound that bad, but in the Genesis version, oh man, it's like bleeding ears. And they actually made that joke where one of the guys was listening to the song on headphones, and he ripped the headphones off, and they like zoomed in and out, and you could see he's like covering his ears, but there's blood like coming down his ears, and it really is like just like piercing, like ear piercing synth. It's just like na 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 na. It sounds like
So worse than Darius Twin?
It is way worse than Darius Twin. You need to hear that song. We'll have to post it so that people can hear it, because if they haven't heard it already,
I'm curious because I don't remember.
It is.
I think I played the Genesis game, but I don't know if
I'll have to
remember
post
if I
it for
played
you.
the
It's
audio.
one of the worst songs, video game based songs I've ever heard.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So the composers for the original Marble Madness were Brad Fuller and Hal Cannon. Brad Fuller started off on Donkey Kong in 1981. He was credited for sound.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not sure which version of Donkey Kong it was.
That must have been not the arcade version, because that was done all in-house. And that was done by Japan, like Japanese composers.
Yeah, I mean, Donkey Kong was released for like 20 different systems
I know.
back in the day, so I'm sure it was probably one of the ones like
It must have
the
been a home
ColecoVision
computer,
or Commodore or
right,
something like
Commodore,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, because that was definitely a widely released game.
Right.
Anyways, after Marble Madness in '84, he arranged the music for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He did Super Sprint, 720, Zybot, so a lot of those Atari arcade games that came out. Vindicators, the RBI Baseball series. He did RBI Baseball 2, 3, and 4. Which
Oh,
is kinda
okay.
cool. And then most recently, 2003, did the music design and the menu music theme for Rugrats Go Wild.
Oh man. Look at
They
those.
always go wild.
Look at those. Look at those babies going wild.
Craziness.
Tommy Pickles.
So his partner Hal Cannon also worked on very many games alongside him. Did 720 and Zybots and Vindicators and Tubin alongside Hal Cannon. But
Tubin.
Also, Tubin. Remember that one? That was fun.
So cool, there's no cheating.
Oh, Tubin.
That had an NES game conversion to
Did it?
didn't it?
Tubin?
Yeah.
There's
Tubin.
Didn't work as well without the little knob.
That's what she said.
we,
Oh boy.
But also did stuff like Gauntlet 2 and Roadrunner as well for that, and support for hard driving.
Hard
Otherwise
driving.
known as the racing game with the lowest frame rate ever.
so this guy doesn't like working with G's, apparently.
My favorite
correct.
part of hard driving, if you play like the Midway Arcade Classic compilation or whatever, the one that has hard driving on it, me and a buddy of mine used to play that all the time, and we thought it was the most hilarious game ever, because when you go through the loops, and like we would intentionally go off the loops.
Yeah.
And we would like hit cars and hit cows and stuff like that.
It would show you the replay of the crash.
Right, but it would play this like intense music, it's like dun dun
Yes, I
dun
remember
dun, dun 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 dun, and we thought that was the funniest thing, because the car would get launched super far, like you would hit a car, or you would just like tap a car, and then your car would explode. It was so fun.
So you can thank Hal Cannon for that.
I will.
Cinematic
I thank you,
craziness.
Hal Cannon.
Awesome name, too.
Yeah.
Right?
Seriously. I
Not
think
like
this
that
is-
hot dog. Not like that hot dog guy.
Yes, W. Greg Turner.
Wiener.
Wiener Greg
Wiener.
Turner.
Wiener. Greg.
God.
The best little hot dog that ever composed me video game music.
Covered in ketchup and mustard.
Yes.
So this is going to be our most eclectic break, because we're going from Marble Madness to Halo.
Right.
That's the same game, really.
Honestly.
Same concept, you
You
know.
roll the Master Chief down the hill.
Yeah.
Balls of steel.
Balls of steel.
Can't fall off the cliff or he dies.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
Now, so this is a perfect example of games that Brendan and I did not both play together. I was not a first-person shooter fan at all. Really, the only first-person shooter I really enjoy is games like Half-Life 2, where it's much more, less frenetic action and more story-based. But
Metroid Prime.
Brendan like really enjoyed the Xbox, while I was more of a PS2 kind of guy. So, yeah. So this is the Halo theme from Halo. I mean, if you have heard this song, if you've or played Halo at all, you definitely know
I really like
this song.
Beyonce's version of this song.
It's a cover.
I think it's a little
it's a cover.
different,
Different
yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah.
but
Artistic
Yeah.
differences
It's
there.
it's cool when Master Chief pulls off his helmet and it's Beyonce underneath. It's really cool.
Only if you beat on Legendary.
Right. Yeah, on Legendary. No, there's another mode after that, Ultra Legendary.
Ultra Legendary.
Yeah.
Which is Beyonce.
Yeah, that Beyonce.
She named it after herself.
Yeah.
That's Kanye West mode.
Yeah.
You beat the game, and then he's like, I'm gonna let you finish the game, but I gotta just, I gotta tell you about how cool I am, and then you can go finish the game.
No, what happened was they made Halo, they finished Halo, right? And then Beyonce came out with the song, and so Kanye West was like, yo, you should put Beyonce in your game, yo. and then that happened.
And that's why Bungie left Microsoft.
Right, because they didn't want.
There's a whole.
They didn't want to put Beyonce in the game anymore. I mean,
Beyonce Gate, as it's known now.
Yeah, Beyonce Gate.
Yeah.
I really liked Halo. It's strange. I remember playing it quite a bit with friends coming back from college break when the 360 had come out. Oh, I'm sorry, not the 360.
The original Xbox. Yeah.
The original Xbox. See, the original Xbox came out. It was 2001. I was knee deep in Smash Brothers. Like, I had gotten a GameCube. I was playing Smash Brothers, Batman. Man, what was that game? Batman Vengeance, I think it was called. And those were the two games that I played. Like, I loved my GameCube, but I wasn't a fan of the Xbox originally. Like, I didn't have an Xbox. I have a 360 now, but I didn't have an Xbox. So my only exposure to the system was coming back from break, and we would go over to my friend Sean's house and play Halo, and we would play co-op Halo. And I wasn't really that big into first-person shooters. I liked Perfect Dark. I liked the more fast-paced, like, arcade shooters, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, those type. And so when we started playing Halo, I was kind of like, all right, this is slower paced. I wasn't really a fan of the speed and the pace, but what made it fun was playing with friends.
Oh yeah.
And so I went back years later and picked up a copy and for my 360, the original, and played through it. And man, when you get to the flood, that
It's an intense game.
Oh my! When you get to the flood, I was like, nope, this game pissed. Like this, that was a controller thrower for me.
Yeah.
Is beating the flood. Even on normal, the game was hard.
It's relentless.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
really
it's
don't. You
brutal.
don't beat the flood. You just have to survive.
You have to survive.
Like,
Yeah, no, that's
they don't
totally
stop
true.
coming ever.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's like you're playing and you have this. You're able to survive when you're fighting the main, whatever their name is, the
Covenant.
Is the Covenant, right? Yeah. I like the lore. I'm just like not that deep into it.
It's
So like
pretty deep.
It is. It gets pretty deep.
Novels and
Comic
a
books
Bible
and-
they made with
yeah.
all the different histories. I played all the games. I have no idea what the story is half the time.
I'm like in the middle of two because I
Okay.
went back recently. I beat one and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna play through all of them, and I bought all four of the ones that are out. I didn't pick up Halo Reach or any of those.
You don't really need to.
Yeah, you don't need to. And I'm like in the middle of two, and the plots just it's getting really confusing, and I'm just like, this is okay, I guess. Like, I still am having fun with the game, but like the plot just doesn't make any sense.
You don't need to know what's going on. It's just a fun game.
It's just a fun game.
My Halo first experience was working at FuncoLand.
Okay.
And I was there when Xbox launched, and Microsoft smartly sent out a bunch of Xboxes early to the stores to let people play them, the people that worked there and the early customers. And they gave us a free copy of Halo, and they said, put it in the Xbox, let people play it, even though we weren't supposed to because it was an M-rated game.
Right.
And then it's yours, whoever wants it after the game. We don't want it back.
Oh, wow.
It's a free game.
That's cool.
So my friend Nick and I, my brother-in-law now, we popped it in and we played. We kind of just were skeptical because it was Microsoft, and no history of consoles, no history of much gaming, and we played a little bit of it, and we played GoldenEye, and we liked the shooters, and we were kind of surprised about how smoothly it played, and with the double analog sticks, it was very easy to jump in and play.
True.
And coming from just playing shooters on a keyboard and a mouse, a lot easier to play Halo with a controller than you would think.
Yeah, I think GoldenEye and Perfect Dark kind of started consoles on the path to being able to play first-person shooters the right way. And I just think that the Halo nailed it as far as the controls, and I mean, it was incredibly influential. I mean, even Call of Duty and all those games that came afterwards pretty much echoed everything that Halo did. And I really do think that if Halo didn't come out on the Xbox, or if, let's say it was multi-platform or whatever, the Xbox would have been gone.
No, it was a huge selling point.
That was the Nintendo killer for them. That was the Sony killer for them, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it was I don't play many multiplayer online games now because I don't like 12-year-olds cheating and swearing at me.
Yeah.
But we used to play single screen, split screen multiplayer in our houses. I think Ed might have jumped in on a film. Remember back when we had the first Halo? We used to play multiplayer. You
used to
didn't play
suck.
too.
It was horrible.
I mean, it wasn't
like around that time. It was like, this was like 2000, 2001. I was never home. I was working full time. I think I was still going to college, and I was totally into girls. So I would wake up, leave the house, do whatever I was doing, and come home in time to go to bed. And that was like about it. So my game time was very minimal.
Talk to girls.
I would wake up, girls, and then just go to bed.
Dream about girls.
Basically.
Dream about girls, and I was talking to girls, and then I would style my hair like a girl. You had like long flowing girl hair, right?
I did, actually.
You did?
then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, ponytail,
yeah.
the whole thing.
Oh, there you go. So you really were all about girls.
Go to the diner, talk to girls.
With a full beard. No.
The full beard. Wee lass.
So let's talk about the composers real quick before we get into the music. It's pretty well known, Martin O'Donnell, who was a longtime Bungie employee, started off with Riven and Myth 2. Then he worked on Oni with Bungie and
That's
got
right.
hired on permanently.
They made Oni, yeah.
Yep. Then got hired on by Bungie full time. He did Oni as a contractor.
Right.
And then got hired on by Bungie full time. Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo Reach, Halo 4. And then when the guys left Bungie and started making Destiny, he joined on with them and composed the soundtrack for Destiny. So he's won awards. I mean, he's just one of the most prolific and, well, maybe not prolific, but one of the most awarded and lauded game composers.
Especially Western game composers.
It's tough. Most shooters these days, almost all shooters these days, are not known for music because you can't hear the music over everything else.
So true.
Yeah. So Halo was one of the games, one of the few games still to this day of the first-person shooter type that has a memorable and distinct soundtrack. The choirs, the chanting, that theme. The theme we're going to hear is very, you instantly know Halo when you hear that.
Right.
It doesn't sound like anything else.
No, that's very true.
Very true. Also, Michael Salvatore, who worked with Martin O'Donnell on most games, co-composed this entire soundtrack. He started off, again, with Riven and Myth 2, worked on Oni with him, did Halo and Halo 3, but I guess kind of bowed out for Halo 2, and is also working with O'Donnell on the Destiny soundtrack as well. So there you go.
Alrighty.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard this track before. This is Halo, from Halo, by Halo, on Halo. Welcome back. That was Lords of Thunder. Now, there's two different versions of that soundtrack. The original one was out on the Turbo Duo / PC Engine CD, and then they remade the soundtrack for the Sega CD and Mega CD when it was released a couple years later. So this was the original Turbo Duo
The OG.
version, which I think is better. I think the internet consensus is they like the Mega CD, Sega CD version better, but I don't know. We all listened to this particular track, and we all kind of convened that the Turbo Duo track is better.
It's more metal.
It's fuzzier,
Well,
harder.
you could consider my Thunder Lorded because
Let's not do that.
I don't know. I got Lords of Thunder. Yeah, man.
Harsh.
This was the Bosk stage. That's the name of the track. And I like the fuzzier version of the song.
You like it fuzzier and harder.
I like it fuzzier and harder. Yeah. Because my Thunder was lorded.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Don't forget about your balls.
Yeah. My balls are wrecked.
Brendan,
Yes.
how did you like this soundtrack, and why did you pick this song?
I really don't. I think I might have played the game once or twice. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago, probably. I just remembered hearing how great the soundtrack was and downloading it. Remember Audio Galaxy?
Audio Galaxy. Oh yeah.
It's great. I have a great many soundtracks from that little file sharing. Before it turned into paid and then Rhapsody, I think that was what it actually is now.
Yeah.
That was a great place to get soundtracks. Like I got a bunch of old R-Type arranged soundtracks from there, and this is one of the soundtracks I downloaded back when that was up and free. It was a great soundtrack, and I think I checked the game out after I listened to it actually because the soundtrack was so good. And it's just it's what I like. It's well done, kind of heavy guitar, some good melody, things that stick in your head pretty easily, and it's as far as the game. It's a shooter. I don't remember much about it in terms of.
It's very mediocre.
Yeah,
in terms
it's
of
not
gameplay.
really that. It doesn't stand out for me at all. I just thought the soundtrack was way ahead of its time in terms of how good the quality was. For
I think
back
that's the consensus most people have is that the soundtrack is unbelievable in this
Right.
game. The game itself, you can take it or leave it.
Shoot
but
things.
yeah, basically, it's a shooter.
Yeah, they spent a whole bunch of time on the music. I mean, well, obviously CD games were very, very new at this point, so they really wanted to take advantage of that. And while a lot of the other companies were doing like MIDI songs and just recording them to CD, they really decided to get a full live band, some really talented musicians. Satoshi Miyazawa was the composer who basically wrote and I think played guitar on all the songs. He's kind of enigmatic because I really haven't found any other information about him on the internet. He's only credited for one other game, which is Lunar Dragon Song. And Lords of Thunder came out in 1993. Lunar Dragon Song came out in 2005.
Yeah, that was a Game Boy Advance game,
And
right?
he's credited for game graphics on the 2005 Lunar game. So I don't know if it's the same person or if it's just somebody with the same name that ended up getting both on one information page. You know, it's really hard to tell.
You know, we've come across that situation before with people who have the same names who also were in the video game industry like that.
Like John Smith.
Yeah, that sort of thing. No, it
That guy's
was
everywhere, really.
It was like I don't remember the name. It was a couple episodes back. We were talking about a guy who was a composer, and there was a person who was a corporate head. Who was in,
right.
Right, and he had the same name, so
Same name, same company.
Right, same company. They both worked for the same company, so the dude had to change his name. So it's like that sort of thing. Like, is it the same name? Is it not the same guy?
Yeah, he basically used his middle name as his...
Right. So with Satoshi Miyazawa, we're kind of like, is it the same guy?
don't know.
So if you guys know, let us know if it is the same guy. If you have any more information on Satoshi Miyazawa, we'd love to hear about it. And
If he happens to be your roommate.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
yeah,
But Carrie James Chico and Carrie Chico.
That's
those
right.
were the two...
yeah.
Like, kind of a weird name to have a complete duplicate of the same. But anyways, yeah. So, yeah, now Carrie James Chico goes by Carrie James. And Carrie Chico was the CEO or head producer or whatever of Activision. It's kind of strange.
This guy.
He's his son.
Who knows? But this, again, excellent metal soundtrack. And if you like it, there's two different versions of it. You can get the Turbo Duo version or the Sega CD version. I believe both are on my forum page, so you can pick up both versions to kind of compare and contrast. Maybe we'll do that in a future episode. We'll take the same track from both of those games and kind of
Maybe.
see what we can do with them.
Let us know what you think of this track, too. Which version do you like more? Do you like the Mega CD, Sega CD version, or do you enjoy your Lords of Thunder, your Thunder of Lords, to be turbo-y and duo-y? And
I like my Lord's Dewey.
You like your Lord's Dewey?
They also changed up the order between the two games, so while this is the Bosk stage on the Turbo Duo, it's the Wilden stage on the Sega CD.
Oh, God.
Big difference.
Yes.
Somehow.
Or something.
You like your
I don't even know.
Lord's Dewey with covered in thunder?
Like my Bosco lobster.
My Lobster Bosk?
Yeah.
You like your Lords covered in lobster bisque?
All right, milking a dead joke here.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next track. It is a game we have played before. I think we played this on the racing game episode.
This song is goofy.
It's
awesome.
It's not. It's kind of unique on the soundtrack because it's more of a kind of like a rock punk-ish track, while the other songs on this soundtrack are mostly like dance oriented.
Right.
This is Circuit Theme C from Top Gear on the SNES, composed by the very prolific Scottish bass composer Barry Leach.
Yeah, the memories I have of this game are us playing through, I don't know, endless circuits. That game seemed to take forever to go through. I think there's a lot
The
of
tracks were very long.
Yeah. I remember it being pretty much just scrolling based Mode 7 graphics and not a lot to the background. The soundtracks were, they were very like house dance, 90s, techno themed, except for this song, which just stood out because it was so different. And this is the one that kind of stuck in my mind more than the other guys, which were more generic to me at least.
Yeah, the original tracks for this I think were composed for the Amiga version of the game, and then Barry, kind of translated them for the SNES. I mean, we've talked about him in the past. He originally obviously started off on those older European PCs.
Commodore 64, Amiga. Right.
Tons and tons and tons of soundtracks to his name. Really cool guy, and he's actually, I think, working on some current games as well. One of our buddies' shows, Pixelated Audio, just recently did an interview with him where he talked about some of the stuff he's working on. So check that one out if you... They did a whole episode
if you
on
dare.
Stuff. Yeah. And really good stuff. He's a really good guy.
This song, I don't know how I feel about this song. Like, I like the bass because it reminds me of Mega Man X, and the guitar is overdriven. That's
It's all
cool.
about that bass.
All about that bass, that Capcom bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, the thing about this game was that it was split screen, whether you were playing single player or multiplayer.
Oh,
so,
that's no good.
Well, for Brendan and I, it was like, whatever, we're going to be playing split screen anyway. May as well
Right.
play two player. You know,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not losing anything or losing any graphical power by doing a two player mode. And it was just like Rad Racer, but a little bit more fun.
There were hills and a little more the twisty
The
turns.
tunnels looked a little bit more
Yeah.
accurate.
I just remember you saying how long the tracks were. It makes me remember if you got into a lead in that game and you didn't crash or really screw up, you could just be racing in first for about 10 minutes without seeing another car or anything else. It's just track and track and track, and the other person can never really catch up unless you screwed up.
The two player mode, I thought I remember it having rubber banding where you went a couple miles an hour faster if you were behind. But still, you got such a lead that even if you were driving a couple miles an hour faster, you probably couldn't
like
catch
that
up.
little yellow bastard in RC Pro-Am that just made that little high
I talked
sound
about that.
just disappeared and you never caught him.
It was like a glitch in that.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a glitch or they just wanted to mess with you. I don't understand.
and then the whole track would turn black after a while. Remember that?
I don't
bug?
remember that.
Oh man.
Oh, we talked about that.
Yeah.
The little yellow car is just saying "screw you, I'm done."
And then just keep
you'd
going
be
in
gone.
loops.
Yeah, that was not.
It would be like 3 laps when time of the.
You had to really start over because you couldn't beat him.
Stupid Darcy Pro-Am. Anyways, let's get into the music. This is Circuit Theme C from Barry Leach from Top Gear on the Super Nintendo.
Welcome back. That was our final track of the night, day, whenever you're listening to this. And that was Gitaru Man for the PlayStation 2, and that song was called The Legendary Theme.
The song just makes me want to ride off into the sunset.
I'm gonna be honest, I was feeling a little sleepy listening to it.
Easy rock.
Yeah, no, it's
term I use when
really,
listening
it's
to
kind of laid back. It's very like, it's kind of spacey. I dig it.
Yeah,
I dig it.
Yeah. So, Brent, this has a lot of similarities with like Parappa, right?
It was I guess it was an attempt to capitalize on that type of game before the guitar music, the real music games came out. It was tough. You had to hold down the analogs and move them around to a little pattern on the screen and hit buttons at the same time, and everything had to be precise. It was a lot more difficult than I anticipated it being. I was really looking forward to it, but I kind of got frustrated with how you really couldn't listen to the songs or play the game unless you were really super coordinated even for gamer coordination, which is usually better than most. Very, very difficult, but great soundtrack.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic soundtrack. It was done by Coil, who was headed by Tadayoshi Okamoto. Not too many games, but he's got some film credits to his name. Hatsukoi and Shinjuku Tsuma Tono Tabiji are two films.
It's a great film.
That he composed for.
No idea what that is.
And was the music producer for Gitaru Man. But that's really about it. But it's mostly, like rock, but it's not just this kind of like power ballad rock that we just heard. There's a lot of different variations of the rock genre throughout.
Yeah, it's more what they call J-rock, which is well-produced garage rock with some J-pop elements to it. If anybody listens to that stuff, which you can tell I do.
Yeah,
it's well done, catchy, and it was very appropriate for the game because the game was kind of a melancholy. It's about a boy coming to terms with his powers and some kind of he wasn't really, like most anime, not happy with it and kind of rebellious and
yeah, he was kind of a loser that pined after like a girl.
Yeah, it basically was an anime that you just controlled with the DualShock 2.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the frustrating part about it too, is because the game itself demanded so much of your concentration, and the actual like story, like cinematics, would be going on behind the game. So not only was it distracting because you wanted to see what was going on, but it was like you either concentrated on the game you were playing or you were watching the story, but you couldn't do both. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like one of the good things about there being like YouTube playthroughs nowadays, is that even if you beat the game, you could go back and watch somebody play it on YouTube and actually concentrate and see what the story was really all about.
Yeah, from what I remember, that game had no improvisation like Parappa or UmJammer.
Oh no, it was precise.
You had to play what you played, and so there's no difference in how you play. You just have to do the way they tell you.
Yeah, the cool thing was there was like offense and defense in the game, so you would have that, like he was talking about, you had to point your analog stick in the right direction and then push a button every time. It almost looked kind of like on Guitar Hero, where you have, where you're holding sustained notes, you would have the dot and then a line behind it, so you had to hold down the button as long as the line goes. But then when you switch to defense, button presses would come in from all four sides of the screen towards the center. When they got to the center, you'd have to push the right button. So you had to switch up your mode of play along with the game, and it got pretty hairy after a while.
Yeah, it definitely was not an easy rhythm game, even for people that played them.
Alright, anyways, the co-composer on this album, or soundtrack, is Yusuke Sato. Now, he's got credit for Gitaru Man Lives and Gitaru Man. Gitaru Man Lives was basically the sequel, I think, for the PSP. But there's also, I guess, a gentleman by the same name who's like a jazz saxophonist who lives in New York.
Duke Silver.
Who may or may not be the same person.
Interesting.
So we don't know. It's like you were talking about before.
Right.
We're two people in the music industry. So I don't know. He may be living in New York. We might be able to go on a couple-hour train ride and visit the guy that co-composed Gitaru Man, for all we know.
Because he'd answer his door for PixelTunes Radio.
Yes.
Yes.
If he spoke English.
Yeah.
Well, he's living in New York. I mean,
that doesn't mean anything.
A little bit of
It's New York.
He's been in New York?
Yeah.
That's true. No, it was an interview that somebody did with him, and he seemed to speak English. Like, he just tracked him down and talked to him after a show, so it wasn't like there was a translator involved in it or anything. So.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is a great game. It's worthwhile checking out if you haven't played it, because the story is really cool. The voice acting is pretty hilarious. And you have this little dog named Puma.
Okay, yeah.
The dog's name is Puma, and he kind of turns into a robot. And he's the guy that like gives you the Gitaru, and you're the Gitaru Man, and you can save the world. Your character's name is U1, letter U -1,
Okay, then.
And in the Japanese version, his name was Yuichi. So Yuichi, Ichi is one. So
Right,
kind of.
I see what they did
See,
there.
So, but you would never know that if you didn't know anything about the
Fun with
Japanese
localization.
version.
Right.
Exactly.
Or if you didn't know,
So-
Ichi ni san shi go roku nana hashi.
Exactly. But that, I mean, the song was a great closing to the podcast, I think, because it's definitely got that kind of like, you win, you're the best.
Go to
Now you
sleep.
can just relax,
You
watch
are
the
the
ending
best.
sequence.
Now sleep.
But Brendan, I want to thank you for being on the show. I had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been wanting to do, obviously, for a while, and I very much enjoyed sharing some stories and listening to some good music, and I hope to eventually be back with some new stuff.
Totally. We would
guys will
definitely
have
have
me.
Brendan Volume 2.
Yes, I have lots of other
If you can ever get a day off of work.
random songs. Well, Sundays, weekends are tough, but
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Yes.
All right
Anything?
then. I got nothing. That's it. We're done.
Mike's checked out for the day.
Apparently.
Yeah.
He's done.
We're wrapping
It's
it up.
Memorial Day weekend, man. So we're
Yeah.
just,
Nice
our
outside.
minds are on cookouts and
We're chilling,
hanging out,
hanging out.
drinking some brewskis.
Yeah, man. Chilling.
Chilling. So next episode we have decided to do, and we rarely, I don't think we've done a single volume 2 yet,
No.
but because we had so much fun doing the Same Song Different System episode, we're going to do Same Song Different System volume 2 in 2 weeks. So we're going to take the same track from the same game on different systems, and kind of compare and contrast them and pick out our favorite versions of tracks. So it's going to be a lot of fun
Yes.
again, and I look forward to recording that one. And so we will see everybody in 2 weeks. I hope you had
Those
fun.
weeks.
Hope you had fun shredding with us.
Yeah.
Peace out. Peace out, boys and girls.
Bye bye.
Peace. Bye.